We live in a world where everyone is screaming for our attention. Social media. Deadlines. Expectations. Likes. Comments. Hustle culture. Everywhere you turn, someone is telling you what matters and what you should care about. But what if the real freedom comes from caring less? Not about everything, but about the right things. That's what the subtle art of not giving a fuck is all about. Mark Manson doesn't preach toxic positivity. He's not going to tell you to visualize your dreams or manifest success. Instead, he strips it all down to this brutal, refreshing truth. You only have so many F***ck's to give. So choose wisely. In this summary, we'll explore stories that challenge your beliefs, ideas that hit hard, and uncomfortable truths that could change your life. From embracing failure to redefining happiness, this book is not here to make you feel good. It's here to make you think differently. So let's begin. And remember, you don't have to care about everything. You just have to care about what actually matters. Part 1, Choosing What to Care About. Let me tell you a story. There was a guy named Dave. Dave did everything the world told him to do. He worked long hours, chased titles, bought stuff he didn't need, and checked his phone every 5 minutes to see if people still liked him. On the surface, he looked like a winner. But deep down, Dave was drained. Why? Because Dave gave a about everything. Every rude comment. Every missed opportunity. Every small failure. Every opinion that didn't go his way. And that's where most people go wrong. You see, Mark Manson's book starts with this one big idea. You only have so many S's to give. So don't waste them. Now, that might sound blunt. But it's the truth most of us need to hear. Life is limited. Time is short. Your energy is not infinite. So the question isn't, how do I give more? The real question is, what is actually worth giving a about? Let's look at it this way. Imagine every morning you wake up with 10 coins. Each coin is 1 unit of attention, emotion, energy. Now, if you spend 3 coins worrying about what strangers think of your post, 2 coins on whether your coworker sounded rude, and 4 coins stressing over something that happened 3 years ago, what's left for the things that truly matter? Your relationships? Your growth? Your peace? Nothing. And that's exactly what happens when you try to care about everything. You run out of energy for what's meaningful. Manson introduces this with an unexpected example. Charles Bukowski. Bukowski was an alcoholic, a gambler, and a self-described loser. But eventually, he became a famous writer. Not because he believed in himself, but because he stopped pretending to care about being liked. On his tombstone, the words are simple. Don't try. That's not laziness. That's honesty. Bukowski didn't fake optimism. He didn't chase admiration. He just did his thing raw, real, flawed. And people connected with it. That's the heart of this book. Not giving up on life, but giving up on performing for it. Let's go back to Dave. When he read this part of the book, something clicked. He realized he was investing all his emotional energy into things he couldn't control: people's reactions, society's expectations, random drama online. Every like, every swipe, every new thing to chase was just noise. So he asked himself a powerful question. What do I truly want to care about? That question changed everything. He started spending less time on social media and more time reading. He quit chasing status and started building meaningful work. He stopped saying yes to everything and began choosing his time. Was it easy? No. But it was freeing. Manson isn't telling you to be careless. He's saying the opposite. He's telling you to care deeply, but only about the things that are worth it. Here's what that looks like. Caring less about being popular. Caring more about being honest. Caring less about looking perfect. Caring more about showing up real. Caring less about being right. Caring more about learning. That's what maturity is. That's what self-respect looks like. You see, we live in a culture that tells you to never settle, always hustle, never quit, and always believe in yourself. But Manson calls that out. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is say, this doesn't matter to me. I don't need to win this. I'm okay with being ordinary. Not because you failed, but because you've chosen a better use of your limited life. That's real freedom. Let's wrap this part with a final image. Imagine your mind is like a garden. If you try to grow everything roses, weeds, tomatoes, dandelions, and palm trees all in one place, you get chaos. Nothing thrives. But if you choose carefully, pull the weeds, water only what you want to grow, you get beauty. You get fruit. You get peace. That's what this book is showing us. You don't need to give more. You need to give better. Part 2, Taking Responsibility for Your Life. Let's begin with a simple story. A man wakes up late for work. His alarm didn't go off. He spills coffee on his shirt, gets stuck in traffic, and finally arrives an hour behind schedule. Frustrated, he blames his alarm, the barista, the traffic lights, everything and everyone but himself. Sound familiar? Most people go through life like that, reacting, blaming, avoiding. But Mark Manson draws a sharp line between fault and responsibility. You are always responsible for how you respond, no matter who caused the problem. That's the uncomfortable truth. And also the most empowering one. Let's take another example, Sarah. Sarah's childhood was rough. Her father left when she was young. Her mother worked multiple jobs. She struggled with self-worth for years and felt like life had handed her a bad deck of cards. When she first heard this idea that she was responsible for her own healing, her own mindset, she resisted. It's not fair, she thought. I didn't ask for this. And she was right. It wasn't fair. But Manson's message isn't about fairness. It's about power. Yes, Sarah wasn't to blame for her pain. But if she wanted to move forward, she had to take responsibility for her response. So she did. She started therapy. She joined a support group. She journaled every morning, not to relieve the past, but to reframe it. Slowly, her story began to shift. Not from victim to hero, but from powerless to self-led. Manson challenges us to stop pointing fingers. Because when you blame your job, your ex, your childhood, or even your country, you're giving your power away. You're saying, I'm stuck because of something out there. But growth doesn't happen out there. It begins within. It's easy to blame. It's harder and braver to own your part in the story. That's what real responsibility is. Not controlling the world, but choosing your response every single day. Let's bring in another story, the famous one of Viktor Frankl. Frankl was a Holocaust survivor, a psychiatrist, and the author of Man's Search for Meaning. While imprisoned in Nazi concentration camps, he lost his family, his home, and almost his life. But there was one thing they couldn't take from him. The last of the human freedoms to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances. Even in the worst imaginable conditions, Frankl discovered a truth that echoes Manson's message. We may not control what happens to us, but we always control what we make of it. This doesn't mean you take responsibility for everything that happens. It means you take responsibility for how you carry it. You didn't choose the pain, but you choose whether it defines you. You didn't choose the betrayal, but you choose whether it hardens your heart. You didn't choose the setback, but you choose what you do next. That's the shift from being reactive to being responsible. Mark Manson gives us a tool for this mindset shift. He calls it the feedback loop from hell. It's when you feel bad. Then feel bad about feeling bad. Then get anxious because you're anxious. And round you go. Taking responsibility breaks the loop. Instead of thinking, I shouldn't feel this way, you say, I feel this way and I own it. That small change turns chaos into clarity. Here's another insight from Manson. We don't always control what happens. But we always control what it means. So when life throws something painful your way, don't ask, why me? Ask, what can I learn from this? What's my next move? How can this experience shape me, not shatter me? That's not toxic positivity. That's courageous ownership. Let's return to Sarah. 1 year after beginning her healing journey, she wasn't perfect. But she was empowered. Not because everything had magically improved, but because she had. She stopped waiting for life to fix itself. She stopped blaming her past for her future. She started making decisions that aligned with who she wanted to be. That's what responsibility looks like. It's quiet. It's powerful. And it's something no one can take away from you. To summarize, fault is about the past. Responsibility is about the present. Blame keeps you stuck. Ownership moves you forward. Life isn't fair, but you still get to choose how you live it. Manson doesn't sugarcoat anything. But that's the beauty of this book. It doesn't promise easy answers. It offers something better: the truth. Part 3, The Value of Failure. Failure. The word itself makes most people cringe. From a young age, we're told that failure is something to avoid. That it means you weren't smart enough, strong enough, talented enough. That it's something to be ashamed of. But what if that's completely backward? What if failure isn't the end of the road, but the only way to get where you're meant to go? Mark Manson argues that failure isn't just part of life. It's the path to a better one. Let's start with a story. There was a young man who wanted to be a rock star. He dropped out of college, moved to LA, and started a band. He poured his heart into his music, writing lyrics, playing shows, scraping by. After years of hard work, his band was signed to a record label. But just before they were about to take off, he was kicked out. The record label didn't think he fit the image. Crushed, broke, and angry, the young man spiraled into depression. He thought his dream was over. His friends told him to quit. But he kept writing music anyway. Years later, that same man started another band. You might have heard of them, Megadeth. The man was Dave Mustaine, and despite the crushing rejection, he built one of the most successful heavy metal bands in history, selling over 25 million albums. And yet, in interviews, Dave admitted something shocking. He still saw himself as a failure. Why? Because he was kicked out of Metallica, the band he helped form, and who went on to become one of the most legendary bands of all time. Here's the twist: even though Dave built incredible success, he still measured himself by the wrong metric. He was winning but comparing it to someone else's scoreboard. Manson uses this story to teach a vital lesson. The key isn't just learning from failure. It's learning to measure it correctly. Let's look at another example: Pete Best. Pete was the original drummer of the Beatles. Yes, the Beatles. But just before the band hit it big, he was replaced by Ringo Starr. While Dave Mustaine became wildly successful and still felt like a failure, Pete Best ended up living a quiet, happy life. In later interviews, Pete said, "I'm happier than I would have been with the Beatles." It sounds strange, but Pete didn't measure his life by fame or money. He measured it by peace, family, and fulfillment. 2 men. 2 rejections. Same setback, completely different outcomes, all because of how they chose to define success. Failure is not just about what happens. It's about what you make of it. Manson says, we're all going to fail. The question is, will you fail smart? Think about your own life. What was your biggest failure? A breakup? A missed opportunity? A job you didn't get? Now ask yourself, what did it teach you? What did it make you reevaluate? How did it shape who you are today? Sometimes, the greatest breakthroughs come from the worst breakdowns. Let's take another real story: Thomas Edison. When asked about his many failed attempts at inventing the light bulb, Edison famously said, "I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work." He didn't avoid failure. He studied it. He used it. And eventually, he lit the world. Manson also warns us about chasing success without understanding our values. He talks about people who say they want to be rich or famous but never ask why. So they keep trying and failing, not because they're not good enough, but because their goals are empty. When you chase shallow success, failure feels fatal. But when you chase something meaningful, learning, growth, connection, failure becomes just another step forward. That's the difference. Failure also reveals who you really are. Anyone can look confident when things are going well. But how do you respond when you're knocked down? Do you give up? Do you blame the world? Or do you take the hit and try again, smarter, stronger, and more honest? Manson says true confidence doesn't come from avoiding failure. It comes from being okay with it. From knowing that even when you fall, you're still enough. Let's return to the man in our opening story, Dave Mustaine. Yes, he carried pain from the past. But he also created something incredible out of rejection. And Pete Best? He turned a world-shaking loss into a quiet, joyful life. They both failed, but only one of them let it define his happiness. To wrap up, failure is not the enemy. It's your teacher. What matters isn't the setback, it's the metric you use to measure it. Choose values that are in your control. Redefine success in your own terms. You don't have to fear failure. You just have to fail with purpose. And then, get back up. Part 4, Embracing Uncertainty and Self-Awareness. Let's begin with a confession. We all think we know ourselves. We believe we know what we want, what we believe, and what's right for us. But here's the truth Mark Manson drops, and it hits hard. We don't know ourselves nearly as well as we think we do. And most of the time, the things we're absolutely sure about turn out to be wrong. Let's explore this through a story. Imagine a man named Raj. Raj is the kind of guy who always has an answer. Confident, outspoken, never hesitates. For years, he believed success meant being certain about goals, opinions, beliefs, and values. But one day, something shifted. He got passed over for a promotion he was sure he'd get. His longtime partner ended their relationship, saying, "You never really listen." And his friends began pulling away. Confused, Raj started reflecting. For the first time, he asked himself questions he'd never considered. What if I don't know everything? What if being right all the time is hurting me? What if certainty is actually the thing holding me back? That moment of doubt, uncomfortable as it was, became the beginning of real self-awareness. Manson puts it simply. The desire for certainty is the enemy of growth. When we cling to being right, we shut the door to learning. When we're afraid of being wrong, we resist change. And worst of all, we build a false image of ourselves, a mask that says, "I've got it all figured out," even when we're breaking inside. Here's a thought experiment Manson shares. Ask yourself, what if everything I believe is wrong? It's not about doubting everything to the point of paralysis. It's about making room for humility. When you admit, "I could be wrong," you become open. Open to feedback. Open to different perspectives. Open to growth. Let's look at history. Galileo challenged the belief that the sun revolved around the earth. People were so certain he was wrong they imprisoned him. Centuries later, we laugh at how confident they were in their mistake. So now ask yourself, what are you absolutely certain about, that might be wrong? Manson shares that certainty is an emotional crutch. People cling to it not because it's true, but because it feels safe. We think, if I'm certain my partner is the one, I'll never be hurt. If I'm sure this career is right, I'll never fail. If I know I'm a good person, I won't need to question my actions. But that's not strength, that's fear in disguise. Real strength is saying, "I'm not sure, but I'm willing to find out." Let's go back to Raj. He started journaling. Not just about events, but about how he reacted to them. Why did he get angry during meetings? Why did criticism feel like an attack? Why did silence in a conversation make him nervous? He didn't always find clear answers. But asking the questions made him more honest. And that's the gift of uncertainty. It pushes you to explore yourself, not just explain yourself. Manson also talks about the value of being wrong. Think about the times you grew most in life. Chances are, they followed moments of deep discomfort, maybe even embarrassment. Like realizing you were wrong about a friend. Or misjudging your own abilities. Or chasing a dream that wasn't really yours. Those moments sting. But they also wake us up. Manson writes, being wrong opens us up to the possibility of change. Being wrong brings the opportunity for growth. So how do you develop this kind of self-awareness? Manson gives us a few clues. Ask better questions. Instead of "Why is this happening to me?" ask, "What part did I play in this?" Notice your emotional triggers. When something makes you overreact, dig into it. There's always a deeper reason. Be skeptical of your own thoughts. Just because you feel something strongly doesn't mean it's true. Surround yourself with people who challenge you. Not critics, but people who care enough to tell you when you're off track. Now here's a metaphor Manson uses. Our beliefs are like lenses through which we see the world. But sometimes, the lenses are dirty and we don't even realize it. Self-awareness means cleaning the lens. It means stepping back and asking, is the problem the world? Or how I'm seeing it? Let's wrap this up. Uncertainty is not a flaw. It's a feature of being human. The most dangerous people are those who are 100% sure of everything. And the most peaceful people? They're the ones who've made peace with not knowing. So, don't chase certainty. Chase clarity. Chase honesty. Chase awareness. Because when you know you could be wrong, you're finally ready to get it right. Part 5, The Power of Saying No and Setting Boundaries. Let's begin with a simple idea. Every time you say yes to something, you're also saying no to something else. Yes to overtime. That's no to dinner with family. Yes to someone else's demands. That's no to your own priorities. Yes to always being available. That's no to peace and space. And here's the hard truth Mark Manson delivers. If you want to live a good life, you have to say no. A lot. But many of us struggle to say no. Why? Because we fear rejection. We want to be liked. We don't want conflict. But in trying to please everyone, we often end up pleasing no one, especially not ourselves. Let's dive into a story. Meet Anjali. She's the dependable one, the one who always shows up, always says yes. Need help moving? Ask Anjali. Need a last-minute favor? She'll drop everything. But something started to crack. Anjali felt constantly tired, emotionally drained, and quietly resentful. She started snapping at people she cared about. Her health declined, her sleep was broken, and her creativity disappeared. One night, she journaled just 2 words, "I'm exhausted." And for the first time, she asked herself, what am I giving away in order to be liked? Manson explains that many of us avoid saying no because we think it's rude or selfish. But actually, saying no is one of the most honest things you can do. Why? Because every meaningful relationship, whether romantic, professional, or personal, requires boundaries. Without boundaries, people walk over you. Not always out of malice, but because you haven't shown them where the line is. Boundaries say, this is what I'm okay with. This is what I'm not okay with. Here's how you can respect me. Let's take another example. Imagine 2 friends, Arjun and Rakesh. Arjun is easygoing, always agreeable, rarely confronts anyone. At first, everyone loves being around him. But over time, people notice something strange. Arjun gets passive-aggressive. He cancels plans last minute. He says he's fine, but he's not. Then there's Rakesh. He's kind, but clear. If he can't do something, he says so. If something bothers him, he talks about it. He doesn't sugarcoat, but he also doesn't bottle things up. Who do you think people respect more? Rakesh. Every time. Because clear boundaries build trust. People know where they stand. There's no guessing, no games. Manson writes, freedom through commitment comes from choosing what to care about and rejecting the rest. You can't be everything to everyone. You shouldn't be. Trying to say yes to everything dilutes your energy, your identity, and your purpose. Saying no allows you to say yes to the right things. Now, let's talk relationships. Manson says that the most toxic relationships aren't just the ones full of fighting. They're the ones where boundaries are missing. Imagine someone who constantly invades your space. They demand your time, ignore your needs, and guilt-trip you when you say no. Or maybe you've been that person fearing abandonment, clinging too tightly, overstepping without realizing it. Without boundaries, love turns into control. Friendship becomes obligation. Work becomes slavery. But what if you set a boundary, and someone walks away? Manson's response is simple. Good. Let them. Because anyone who disappears when you start valuing yourself was never really for you. Boundaries don't push people away. They filter them. They reveal who respects you and who only respects what you can give them. Back to Anjali. She started small. She said no to a weekend she didn't want to commit to. She turned down a request that drained her. She asked for space when she needed it. The results weren't instant, but they were powerful. Some people pulled away. But others leaned in, more respectful, more understanding. And Anjali. She felt lighter, more grounded. Like she was finally building a life for herself, not just for others. So how do you build stronger boundaries? Manson gives a few steps. Know your values. If you don't know what matters most, you won't know what to say no to. Be direct. Don't over-explain. A simple, honest "I can't" is enough. Accept discomfort. Saying no may feel awkward. That's okay. Discomfort is not danger. Be consistent. Boundaries are not one-time events. They're habits. Here's a metaphor. Think of your life as a house. Boundaries are the walls, the doors, the locks. They're not there to trap anyone, they're there to protect what's inside. You decide who enters, how long they stay, and how they treat your space. Without walls, your house gets trampled. With clear boundaries, you build a home. So let's sum up. Saying no is not selfish, it's essential. Boundaries don't hurt relationships, they make them real. You teach people how to treat you by what you allow. When you start valuing your time and energy, others will too. It's not about giving fewer cares. It's about giving them to the right things. And sometimes, the most powerful word you'll ever say, is no. Part 6, Responsibility, Blame, and Taking Ownership. Let's begin with a simple idea that Mark Manson drills deep into. You are always responsible for your experiences, even when they're not your fault. At first, that might sound unfair. Even a little cold. But let's unpack it, because this idea can completely shift how you see your life. Imagine a young man named Neeraj. Neeraj had a rough start. His parents fought constantly. He was bullied in school. He got passed over for jobs he felt he deserved. At every turn, life seemed stacked against him. For a long time, he held on to one belief. None of this is my fault. And he was right. It wasn't his fault. But here's the turning point: Neeraj realized something else. It was his responsibility to choose what to do next. He couldn't go back and change the past. But he could change how he responded to it, what he learned from it, and what kind of person he decided to become. That was his power. Manson makes a bold but crucial distinction. Fault is in the past. Responsibility is in the present. You might not have caused the problem. But you are responsible for how you deal with it. Let's take an example. Say someone crashes into your car. It's clearly their fault. But now you have a choice. Stay angry, blame them forever, and let that frustration eat at your day. Or take responsibility for the next step: getting the car repaired, sorting the paperwork, and moving forward. The accident is not your fault. But the aftermath is now your responsibility. Now let's go deeper. Manson shares that people often confuse responsibility with guilt or blame. They think, if I'm responsible, then I must have caused this. If I'm responsible, it means I'm the bad guy. But that's not true. Responsibility isn't about taking the blame. It's about taking control. It means saying, I didn't choose the situation, but I choose how I respond to it. That's real power. Here's another story. Meet Mira. Mira's father walked out when she was a child. She spent years angry, blaming him for the loneliness, the anxiety, the insecurities that followed her into adulthood. But one day, during a therapy session, something clicked. The therapist asked, how long will you let a man who left you continue to control your life? That question hit her like lightning. She realized she had no power over what he did. But she had full power over what she did next. She started healing. Not because he came back and said sorry, but because she took ownership of her own emotions. Manson writes, responsibility is not about fault. It's about power. When we blame others, we give them control over our happiness. When we take responsibility, we take that control back. Even in pain, even in unfairness, we find a path forward. Let's bring in a historical example. Nelson Mandela spent 27 years in prison unjustly. He could have emerged bitter, seeking revenge. Instead, he took responsibility for his country's healing. He chose reconciliation. Peace. Unity. That's not weakness. That's leadership. That's the kind of power Manson talks about, the power of emotional ownership. Here's how you can apply this mindset. Separate fault from responsibility. It's okay to admit something wasn't your fault, but don't stop there. Ask, what can I do now? Ask better questions. Not why did this happen to me? But what can I learn from this, or what does this make possible? Stop waiting for apologies. You don't need closure from someone else to move forward. You can give it to yourself. Choose response over reaction. Take a pause. Reflect. Then act in a way your future self will respect. Think of it like this. Your life is a story. Some chapters were written by others, your childhood, your circumstances, your traumas. But you hold the pen now. What kind of story will you write from here? Blame keeps you stuck in the past. Responsibility lets you build the future. One of Manson's core messages is this: you don't always control what happens, but you always control the meaning you assign to it. Two people can experience the same hardship. One grows stronger, the other falls apart. The difference is mindset. Ownership. Willingness to act. Let's return to Neeraj. He didn't suddenly become successful overnight. But once he took ownership of his choices, his energy changed. He stopped waiting to be rescued. He stopped comparing. He started focusing on what he could control. And slowly, his life started changing, not because the world got easier, but because he got stronger. So let's summarize. Responsibility is not about blaming yourself. It's about empowering yourself. You might not have chosen the pain, but you get to choose the path. The most powerful people aren't the ones who avoid problems. They're the ones who own them. In a world full of blame, take the road of ownership. That's where growth lives. Part 7, Death and the Final Freedom. There's one truth we all share, no matter our background, beliefs, or status. We are all going to die. It's not a comfortable topic. Most people avoid thinking about it. But in this final chapter, Mark Manson argues that facing death, truly staring it in the eye, is the most powerful thing we can do. Because when you realize your time is limited, you stop wasting it on things that don't matter. Let's begin with a true story. There was a man named Charles Bukowski, a rough and honest poet who lived on the edge. When he died, his gravestone didn't have some elegant poem or deep quote. It simply said, "Don't try." Strange, right? But Manson explains Bukowski wasn't telling us to be lazy. He was saying, don't fake it. Don't pretend. Don't try to be something you're not. Just be real. And death forces us into that kind of honesty. Imagine this. You're walking through your life, busy, stressed, comparing yourself to others, chasing things that feel urgent but not important. Then one day, you're told you only have 6 months left to live. Suddenly, everything shifts. You no longer care about how many followers you have. You don't worry about what strangers think of you. You stop tolerating fake friends and empty goals. You focus on what really matters. This is the clarity that death brings. And the surprising gift it holds. Manson tells the story of a friend named Josh. Josh was in his 20s, full of life, when he was diagnosed with cancer. The news shattered everything. But as he processed it, something strange happened. He became calm, focused, free. He stopped caring about petty arguments. He called his parents more. He forgave people. He laughed harder. He cried freely. He lived deeply. Then, miraculously, the cancer went into remission. He survived. But the experience changed him forever. Because once you face the end, you stop giving your time, energy, and heart to things that don't deserve it. Death, Manson says, is not the end. It's the motivator. It reminds us that life is too short to care about everything. Too short to seek approval. Too short to chase shallow goals. When you accept death, you learn how to live. Think of a man on his deathbed. He's not thinking about how many likes his last post got. He's not worried about whether he impressed his boss. He's thinking about, did I love fully? Did I forgive? Did I spend my time on what mattered? Was I true to myself? This awareness is what Manson calls the final freedom. When you accept that everything is temporary, you stop clinging. When you accept that nothing lasts, you start paying attention. And when you stop fearing death, you stop fearing life. Let's bring in another example. Steve Jobs, the visionary behind Apple, once said, "Remembering that I'll be dead soon is the most important tool I've ever encountered to help me make big choices in life." He knew that death strips away all pride, all fear, all ego. And when that's gone, what's left is clarity. Manson writes, "You are going to die someday. And that's because you are fortunate enough to have lived. So don't run from this truth. Let it guide you. Let it remind you that every argument is a moment you'll never get back. Every wasted day is a gift you didn't open. Every passion ignored is a chapter you didn't write." Here's something you can do today, a little mental exercise. Imagine your own funeral. Who's there? What do you want them to say about you? What kind of legacy do you hope to leave? Now work backward from that. Build your life in a way that matches your answers. Live the kind of story you want people to remember. Not one based on fear or comparison, but one rooted in purpose, love, and truth. So what does this have to do with not giving a dash? Everything. Because when you remember your time is limited, you become intentional. You start giving your energy to what actually matters. Deep relationships. Meaningful work. Peace of mind. Growth, contribution, love. And you stop giving it to things that don't. Status. Drama. Perfectionism. Fear of judgment. One final story. There's an old parable about a traveler who asks a wise monk, "Master, what is the meaning of life?" The monk simply points to a small flower growing in the sun. The traveler doesn't understand. But over time, he realizes the flower is fragile, short-lived, and yet, beautiful. That's what life is. Brief. Delicate. But precious. The point isn't to chase everything. The point is to love what matters while you still can. Let's sum up this final lesson. Death is not the enemy. Wasting your life is. The awareness of death brings the gift of clarity. Let it sharpen your priorities and soften your heart. Stop trying to care about everything. Start living with intention. Give your time only to what truly deserves it. Because when you stop fearing the end, you finally learn how to begin. And that brings us to the end of The Subtle Art of Not Giving a by Mark Manson. This book isn't about caring less. It's about caring more, about the right things. It's about letting go of chasing perfection, applause, and approval and instead focusing on what actually matters to you. Whether it's owning your responsibility, accepting failure, embracing discomfort, or staring death in the face, Manson shows us that true strength comes not from avoiding pain, but from finding meaning through it. So as you go forward, ask yourself, what are you giving your energy to? Is it helping you grow or just keeping you busy? Are you choosing your values or are they being chosen for you? Because you only have so many S to give. Use them wisely. If this summary helped you, leave a comment and let me know what hit home the most. And if you're ready to explore more life-changing ideas, don't forget to subscribe to Books Arena. I'll be back soon with another book that could change the way you see the world. Until then, take care, give less to the noise, and more to what truly matters.